Howdy there, folks. Welcome to the FOR podcast here. My name is George Morgan, back again with episode 2 of this podcast. Got to say, it's a bit of a new thing brought into league racing, certainly our league, that's for sure, and something we're very keen to push along with. And I've got to say, I'm joined by 3 guests, 4 including myself. I'm joined by Lawrence, one of the co-admins here, one of the owners of the league. Hello, Lawrence.
Hello.
Yeah, good. Droftas as well, one of the other co-admins and owners as well. How you doing, Droftas?
Evening. How are you, mate?
Oh, very well, thank you. Very well indeed. And I'm also joined by Luke Etheridge as well. Luke, how you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. Yourself?
Yes, very well, yes. Co-commentator, of course, as well. And we're here basically, guys, aren't we, to review the action of the past week. Obviously, there's been a lot going on, certainly in terms of F2 and F1. Naturally, I think it's probably prudent to start with the F1 standings. Obviously, at the moment, after last weekend, we saw a bit of a mix-up in the championship with Westy now taking his first win of the season at Canada. It was absolutely mind-blowing, the finale to that race. It was absolutely brilliant. Me and Luke had the fortune of actually casting that event, and Luke, what a corker it was.
Yeah, it was a brilliant race. Action all the way throughout the field. Great job seeing Westy taking the win in F1 as well. On his debut as a reserve driver, he did very well. I'm sure there's a few drivers will be regretting a few of the mistakes that they made, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
We certainly will. There'll be lots of conversations around that. I think Baruch is probably going to be one of those conversations as well after that little pit stop mix-up going into the last safety car. Westy, in fact, actually put himself in P9 in the championship. A tremendous feat there for the Williams team, who have struggled all season so far, and he's managed to push himself to the top. I think it's only prudent, guys. I think we'll show the footage from F1 last time, and you guys can check it out. Let's watch the last few laps of that epic race at Canada. Of this Grand Prix, I'm not sure quite what happened, but once again, it seems to have happened. I think he might have just come into the pits and retired, Luke.
Yeah, I think quite thankfully, I think for some of these guys that have got penalties, that is what's happened. Paulie Orange, I believe that's his 6th penalty of the race now for the Haas driver. He could find himself dropping a long way down the field here, so maybe there is still a chance for Westy and NUF1 to take the victory, because they are pushing as hard as possible now. We're down to only 12 runners. It just shows what a difficult circuit this Canadian track can be. The wall's ever unforgiving at the high speeds and low downforce that you need to be successful on the straights here. But coming on to the penultimate lap now, it's Paulie Orange, Westy, NUF1. I thought he'd be able to close up quicker on those soft tyres, but Aylan, in fact, is doing a superb job of keeping in contact, as NUF1 has actually got it wrong coming out of the wall of champions. Aylan just says thank you very much. The McLaren now in a provisional podium slot.
Well, Aylan forever able to keep the car on the track. I mean, I got to say, he could be the dark horse of this race. He very rarely picks up a penalty, and I'm not sure what his situation is with penalties in this race. He makes his way towards the Vettel-Hamilton chicane. He in fact, is historically, I very rarely see him pick up a penalty, and he's now in P3. The way things are drawn out now, if he can get any closer to Paulie Orange or Westy, who I believe both have penalties against their name, this could really swing the boat in his favour. As things stand, he's only 4.6 seconds behind Westy and Paulie Orange. He needs to make use of what he's got while he's got it, because 34 of 35, we've only really got one lap left, Luke.
Yeah, Aylan does actually have 2 penalties. Westy has 3. Paulie Orange, I believe, has 6. And NUF1, he only has 1 at the moment. So I think at the moment, I've got to say, it's looking like NUF1 might just win this here. It's going to be close between NUF1, Westy and Aylan. I think Paulie Orange, he's starting the final lap. He's going to win this out on track. He might not even get a podium here at the end of this. It's pretty much a time trial between Westy, Aylan and NUF1 for who's going to take the victory here in Canada.
Well, Aylan still trying to hold his own there. He's in P3, 4.8 seconds the gap between him and Westy. Westy is now dropping back from Paulie Orange, whether he knows that the penalties are coming into play here, because he's now dropping back quite exponentially. It's now 1.3 seconds. Paulie Orange obviously pushing to try and get the most he can out of his tyres in order to make sure that the penalties don't cause effect here leading towards the end of this race. He really is starting to push now, and Westy is starting to drop back as they make their way through towards the out of the tunnel leading into the chicane, and you can see the Haas just in front of him here as they make their way towards the Epingle, trying to hold his own and maintain P1. Looking further back though, Aylan still maintaining the gap 4.8 seconds has not changed at all, and he's about to come around the Opingle himself. Then UF1 dropping back to around 1.5 seconds here. Oh, it's going to be interesting leading towards the end of this Grand Prix as we now see Paulie Orange make his way down. It's difficult to call. I'm dreading saying who's won this race because I don't have the answer for you folks as they come round towards the straight now. You can just see Paulie Orange coming round the track now. Is it going to be P1 for him? I'm not sure. It is for now. It's Westy for now.
I think Westy's done it. I think Westy's going to be far enough ahead of NUF1 actually. Just by 0.289 seconds, Westy takes the win. Energetics fourth, Paulie Orange drops down to fifth. Droftas, he got it completely wrong and got himself a 10-second penalty at the end of the race, so he might find himself dropping a few more positions as well.
Well, the winner today is Westy. Westy has taken P1 here based on penalties. A debut victory here for the Williams driver, and Williams' first win of the season here at Canada. So yes, it was indeed Westy who did take P1 in that race, and I got to say, in cracking style as well. Sorry guys, we're having a few issues with the camera scenario at the moment. I'm just seeing that we've actually got part of Lawrence's camera, but it's actually it's not showing all of it. Bit of a palaver without shadow of a doubt. We're just going to quickly fix that for you guys. Bear with me just 1 second. In fact, I don't think it'll let me do it while I'm in stream actually. That's a bugger, isn't it? Okay. Right, so we might just have to keep my camera on for the time being, I think, otherwise it's going to be an absolute mess. There we go, absolutely brilliant, fantastic.
Oh wait, hold on.
No, it's the way it's cropped. Sorry, Lawrence. Sorry, it's the way it's cropped. It's chucked you out and only showing a corner of your room.
That's fine. There we go. We'll just have it on.
Which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, no, going back to the race, what a phenomenal Canadian Grand Prix it was. And I've got to say, three faces you would never expect, hardly given the form of drivers that you would have expected to see at the top of the Canadian Grand Prix. But let's have your thoughts, guys. Let's go around the table. I mean, Lawrence, haven't heard from you yet, obviously. Give us your thoughts on the ending of that Canadian Grand Prix. Who were your movers and shakers?
Well, it was madness, wasn't it? We didn't know who won because of the time penalties. I thought it was Paulie Orange, then it was Westy, and then NUF1's jumped up, and it's like, what's going on? I was really impressed with Alian, actually. I'm really surprised that he's got into the top five, never mind third place. But
he's a very similar driver to Droftas, in my opinion. I mean, I get the impression that I'm sure you'll agree with me, Droftas, but he's consistent as well, isn't he? I mean, if you look at Alian's results over the past week or the past couple of months, should I say, and he has picked up some points positions quite successfully, and that didn't change going into Canada. He was good at Monaco, he was in the points at Monaco, and he's on many occasions he's been up and about. In fact, he has finished in a points finish in every race this season. You can't see that's not consistent.
It's great consistency.
No, that's the second podium as well. Prides himself on not getting penalties, keeping it clean, and it's working well. Credit to him.
Yeah, well, that's two P3s this season. He looked, obviously, with NUF1 taking P2, he could not quite nail that top spot. NUF1 obviously favourite for the first place, as me and Luke were discussing, because obviously Paulie Orange susceptible to penalties towards the end. He had, I don't know how many penalties it was, Luke. It was something else, wasn't it? It was about 6.
I think it was around 21 seconds or something in that region towards the end. It was ridiculous. But NUF1, he'll be delighted with his second place that he got. But I just caught it with a couple of laps to go. He got it wrong coming out of the chicane at the Wall of Champions, and he only ended up finishing around a quarter of a second behind Westy. So we could have seen NUF1 taking his first win in the end. But he'll be delighted with second. Westy obviously delighted with first, and as you said, Alian sort of came up from the background. We weren't really talking about him much, and all of a sudden at the end of the race he popped up with P3. Absolutely.
It was a tremendous effort, and I got to say, and we can look at the favourites as well as who we did expect to be on top, because I know we were discussing at the start of the stream the countless chaos that was. I mean, there were several incidents during the race, but I think one of the most bizarre ones was the pit stop. I mean, obviously Borussia looking favourite to win. He was leading the Grand Prix. He only had 2 laps on his soft tyres. Decided to pit during the last safety car to get on a new pair of soft tyres. You could tell he hesitated because he stopped just before the pit lane. What do you think his thinking was behind that, Lawrence?
What I think happened was, I think was it on lap 25 he went in, because there was 10 laps left, of the race, and I think he was thinking to put fresh softs on it, and I think he was expecting Paulie Orange and Westy to follow him in, and then as soon as he realised they're not, he kind of stopped on track and hesitated, didn't know what to do, but by then it was already too late.
Yeah, but he ended up coming out at the back of the grid. He had a mountain to climb to get his way back, and unfortunately, actually, what was susceptible to some damage that did actually jeopardise the rest of his race. It really left him in bad shape. I think he lost I think it was a left M plate, wasn't it, Luke? It was a very strange set of circumstances.
Yeah, wasn't quite sure what happened there, but I think McGee and Andenge were also involved. There was something happened at the back of the grid between all them who's pitted. But we heard on the interview after the race with NUF1, he was also thinking about pitting for another set of fresh tyres, even though he'd only just pitted at the first safety car. And judging by how he was doing towards the end, it was pretty borderline as to whether those softs would last until the end. But it ended up working for NUF1. Birussia will be kicking himself, as will Paulie Orange, as we mentioned, for his penalties. Let's not forget, after the first pit stop, Paulie Orange came out in front and then got it wrong straight away, heading outside turn 2. That dropped him behind Birussia and Westy, so maybe if that hadn't happened, he'd have been further away up the field, because he definitely looked to have the pace.
Well, at the moment, he's 9 points behind Drofdas in the championship. We got Drofdas actually on the call here with us, so it's quite unique. I mean, Drofdas, you're top of the table literally 2 weeks running, and Paulie Orange just sat behind you. Obviously, the results pretty much paid dividends for yourself, didn't they? I mean, they came in and you benefited, certainly, and you've managed to actually increase the points gap in comparison to where it was last week. How long do you see this run going? Is there a chance we could see yet more from you in France? What are your thoughts?
I thought it would go after this week, to be honest, because there's a lot faster drivers than me. I'm just trying to keep with them and keep consistent and pick up where they make mistakes. But the way things played out worked really nicely for me, as I've, like you said, extended a lead.
Dan, do you think you could win?
France. Well, overall, I don't think for a second I can win. I don't think for a second.
Do you think there's no chance you could
now.
win the championship?
There's a chance that everybody in this league could win the championship with the calibre of driver in the league, but
I'd have to agree.
I think on paper, there's a lot of people ahead of me in the pecking order that would be favourite to win, but there's no point ruling it out because we're 7 races in and I am top. So
Paulie Orange has won the last 2 of the 3 races, hasn't he? And we've now got a newcomer who we've recently just trialled, who I won't announce their name just yet, but we'll see them next week in France. And I'm quite excited to see them race against Westy and Paulie Orange, because they're going to be a real challenge for them, because this person who's just joined, for me personally, he's on paper he's even quicker.
Yeah, we haven't seen everything from Westy yet, and you could just tell that he had the pace on with Paulie Orange. Those two were pretty much going at it literally at the last, all race really, and then towards the final few laps, obviously that's when mistakes were made. Paulie Orange, like you said, Luke, he went off the track, just sort of rubbed in with the turf there on the exit of the pit lane, and that's what cost him. I mean, it could have been a very different story, though I got to say penalties are pretty conclusive when you come to the end of a race, but I'm sure we'll see it change next week. Obviously France, not as easy to pick up a penalty, because obviously the track is so wide and there's lots of runoff as well, and obviously it makes it probably difficult to get a penalty in some way, shape or form unless you really go for it. But
I think we'll see a lot from Birussia at France.
I think that we're forgetting also about Jos Heinze.
Yes, we are.
I mean, he had a qualifying ban which jeopardised his start to the race and picked up some damage, which obviously forced him to retire in Canada. But before that, his pace before his damage in Monaco was untouchable. So he's going to be there or thereabouts in France.
Yeah, well, he hasn't. He's been. Sorry, Luke. Carry on. Sorry.
His teammate as well, Jonathan Cox, he was on it in qualifying in Monaco. Both racing points were right up there at the front of the field, but he struggled in the race and he didn't have the best Canadian Grand Prix. So there's lots of drivers who on their day can challenge for victories.
Yeah, well, the 2 racing points, don't forget, they actually they had, both of them had qualifying bans going into the start of the race, so naturally they were at a disadvantage even to begin with. But yeah, like you say, the pace of Yossi Heinze, you cannot dispute that he's got raw talent and pace, and he was not he wasn't falling back when he was in P1 when Paulie Orange was chasing him. Paulie Orange managing, testament to his driving, to keep in touch with Yossi Heinze, but Yossi unable to get it done on the day. And you get that feeling that he's had a rotten bit of luck the past couple of weeks. You know, could he do it at France?
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
After Baku, I've had awful luck as well. Awful.
Yeah, well, you've been around the points, Lawrence. I mean, you're on.
Well, interestingly enough, I was leading Baku, and then the two drivers who I fell behind to because of wing damage, they've now both left the league. So a little bit bitter about that. But since then, I've just had nothing but bad luck. Monaco and Canada have just been terrible.
Well, Canada, like I say, is a very tough track. I mean, it may sound good. It's fast. Don't get me wrong, very fast circuit. But like you say, I think I mentioned it in the race as well. The corners are so tight, they're so quick. At the same time, you've got to be careful with the curbs. If you lose any traction, you're going straight into a wall because it's so close. There's literally not a lot of tolerance between the circuit and the wall. You know, there's not a lot at all. I mean, you guys could probably experience that. I mean, Luke, you probably know.
Are we going to talk about the incident?
Well, we can do, yes. I mean, I suppose we'll let Luke take it away. I think he saw the... Are we talking about the main one going towards the end of the race by any chance?
We're talking about the main one with Double O.
Yes, obviously a very...
The chaos all started at the Wall of Champions. I think it was Altiero skipped the chicane. Jompalainen got past him heading into turn 1. Altiero, I don't know if he'd already got some damage because he completely missed his braking point. That forced Jompalainen off the circuit. As they're rejoining, Double O's getting involved in it, Energetic 6 is getting involved, pretty much the entire midfield is getting involved in that battle. Altiero skips the next chicane as well, gets back ahead of Jompalainen, and then all manner of chaos happens, ends up with Double O retiring. That's what kicked off the first safety car, and that's what then caused all this chaos towards the end of the race with different pit strategies. It's probably not going to see something like that in France because you get about halfway to Germany at Paul Ricard before you end up meeting a barrier.
Well, hopefully we won't be seeing anything like that again. It's been dealt with, and it's not something we look to promote.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it happens. I mean, obviously the driver in question is obviously left now. The which caused the incident, which is obviously just as we would expect here at FOR, really. But you know, credit to the likes of Double O. Again, we haven't seen his best form yet, because I know he can go quicker than what he's showing at the moment, and I know for a fact that he's got at least a podium in him. Because Droftas will speak for me. I mean, he's not slow by any means, is he?
No, for me, he's the faster of the two Mercedes. You just get out this bad run of form. Hopefully, he picks some stuff up and he can carry me for the second half of the season. That's the plan, anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're looking good for it at the moment, mate. I mean, 71 points at this stage. If you look further down, obviously Double O's still yet to get his points, but I think they're going to be incoming.
He will. He will.
Well, another one I want to talk about is Nuts, the Nuts Asylum. And
Nuts Asylum.
Yes,
he's on his way. He is. He's coming. Mark my words. He's coming. He's picking at it slowly and slowly. He's not used to having no TC and manual gears, and he's got brilliant pace. He knows where to put the car on the track. It's just that he's used to using medium traction control and automatic gears, and now he's made the switch over. We're just seeing a slow transition. So we've seen him not getting any points since he's joined until Canada due to we had a few grid changes, didn't we, due to penalties being taken off, such as 10-second time penalties, which saw Nuts Asylum finish in 8th place with 2 points. So he's coming. He's coming slowly. Well, I expect him to be in the points again in France.
Yeah, well, if you look at his results over the past, since he started, I mean, naturally we all know he took a long extended break away, and obviously he wasn't there at the start of the season to pick up the initial points. So you've got to give him, some severe credit. After a few obvious issues at the start, he's slowly bringing himself into contention. Those DNFs have started to turn into P13s. Ever since then, he's had a P9. A good result at Monaco. If you take points out of the equation, it's still a good result, P13. Given the fact that we probably had quite a lot, I would consider quite a lot of finishes. Not many league races actually have that many finishes in. I mean, you see countless league races with only the top 10 finishing a Grand Prix at Monaco, and yet we had more than 13. And Lawrence finishing. Nuts Asylum finishing in P13, and the following week to come back and come in P9 at Canada just shows the improvements and the strides he has made. And I'm really sure that he can pull it out the bag. I think France would be good for him. I think it provides him with yet a bigger platform for him to show his stuff. He's a good overtaker. We saw a couple of moves that he made at Canada, and I got to say, it almost showed the old Nuts was coming back. The Nuts Asylum was back. What are your thoughts on him, Luke? I mean, you watched him alongside me. I mean, he looked in better form this week.
Yeah, he looks like he's getting back to how he used to be. He's finished the last 2 races, and if you keep, as Draftas has shown, that consistency eventually is going to pay off. Now that he's finishing the races, he doesn't have to worry about being a bit more careful. Could probably push the car a bit more, and France is an ideal track to do that. You're not going to get punished as heavily for your mistakes as you have done at Monaco and Canada. So he's another one of those that could all of a sudden shoot up, and he's taking part in the F2 as well, and that helps with improving your racecraft, even though they are very different cars, of course.
No, absolutely. I think if you can drive in an F2 car, I think that gives you a really good platform for F1, because naturally you've got to manage that traction and everything really effectively, because you could so easily get it wrong. I mean, the horsepower, like I keep saying, 620 brake horsepower in those F2 cars. Obviously, the F1 cars very much considerably more than that, and obviously that can, that's when you really need to start bringing in that skill into action, if you know what I mean. But I think
we're just looking at the comments, George. Just looking at Matt James now. He's just said the comeback is on. This is also my first season with no TC and manual gears. But I've got a question for Dan. When are you going to take TC off, Dan?
When he stops leading
when
the
I lose my
championship.
championship lead, mate.
I knew it.
Don't change something that's working, buddy.
I knew
If
it.
it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I knew it.
Exactly. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
I knew it. I read that before you said it. I knew that was coming. Brilliant. Absolutely.
I think you should take it off, Dan.
I've had laps off. I've had the wheel out, and I'm slowly getting there. As soon as I feel like I'm ready to do what I'm doing with it on, I'll turn it off.
Yeah, well, if
Throw
you,
yourself in the deep end for France.
I think what Lawrence is getting at, if you actually take it off, he might actually get into the points then.
Oh, come on now! I was fastest on track at Baku.
He's got to
Nobody
finish a
was
race to
catching
get
me.
in the points, mate. He has to finish a race first.
Yeah, that's my problem. On the day, it's quickest on track, and then but those days are few and far between at the minute.
Well, it's a very, very different story since the last entity of this league. I got to say, very, very, very different. But
Very different.
I mean, you look at it now though. Jonathan Cox, very promising start to the season. Obviously, a few things haven't gone his way. In the light of penalties, things like that. Naturally, you've got to pay your penalties. But you started quite promisingly. You started out with a P3 in Australia, P2 in China, and then obviously picking up a P6 in Bahrain, P5 in Spain. You know, he's flirting around the points a little bit, but maybe a little dip in form. Maybe he just needs to find his mojo.
Yeah, a little bit of dip of form, I think, but towards the end of the season, he's definitely coming back, and I think he'll be up there in the top 5, certainly. It's going to be difficult now with the incoming of Paulie Orange, Westy, and Westy's friend who trialled the other day. For me, they are the top 3 in the league now, so it's going to be difficult.
I still put in Yoss there. I think Yoss is up there.
Well, I only say that they're the top 3 because I've not seen much of Yoss yet, so I'm not taking credit away from him. I'm just going off of what I've seen so far.
Well, I mean, if you look at the constructor standings now, Aston Martin Red Bull Racing 108 points, Haas F1 team 106 points, Racing Point 101 points, and then there's a gap then to Mercedes 71 points. So it looks like at the moment the top 3 are your Racing Point team, Haas and Red Bull. However, you look at Mercedes or the other runners, I mean, 25 points can change anything just like that. And like we keep saying, we have been getting different podium sitters every week pretty much. We've had some, apart from Paulie Orange, who won 2 on the spin at both Spain and Monaco. We've had
Didn't get 3 though.
he didn't get 3, but you know, we haven't, to be honest, seen the best out of other drivers just yet. Williams might yet come into play now with Westy in there. It's Sophie's choice as to who's going to win the championship in the constructors standings.
We've got the return of YBR. Big respects to him at the minute for working for the NHS during these times, but we've got him to come back as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, Williams have been kind of one-legged this season. Obviously, they've had probably more driver changes than any other team in this league. So therefore, you wouldn't be surprised to see them towards the bottom, through no fault of their own, really. They're currently level on points, though, with Alfa Romeo, and they've had driver changes, as well as Ferrari, who are in P8 at the moment, as well as Renault. Renault have obviously had another driver change. Dan Murphy obviously exited him, which was a big shame, I got to say, because Dan has been a very, very good racer and has won races. He won Baku. I mean, I got to say, it does look promising for Renault. Obviously, built Matt now, trying to hold the fort in the absence now of a driver. But you got to give Renault credit where credit's due. I mean, Dan Murphy's win at Baku, that was phenomenal.
His new teammate, Bill and Matt's teammate, I'm really looking forward to watching. He's going to be battling Westy and Paulie Orange, and if he's not battling, I think he'll be gone.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. I mean, what are your thoughts on the current driver changes? Because obviously, we've had a few this season. You know, would you say it's really sort of rubbed the championship up a little bit, the drivers and the constructors?
Definitely. It's not been helpful. We need a bit of consistency now. But you see the same drivers week in, week out. They're coming to the top of the table every week. It's just that somehow Dan's managed to get top of the championship. Have you had a podium this season, Dan?
I've had two, mate. I've had a second place in Australia and I had a third place in Monaco. Yeah. But interestingly enough, nobody has had more than 2 podiums this year in this league.
Allianz another one who's had 2 podiums.
Yeah, no, nobody's had 3.
Ah, okay.
John Cox has had 2. I've had 2. Orange has had 2. There's a few others. Nobody has got a third podium yet.
We'd expect more of
unless I'm mistaken.
We'd expect more of Artilero as well. Artilero, I know Luke knows him, I think, maybe a little bit, because he actually raced in AOR a few times.
What about Heebyloo?
Well, he's another one, yeah. But he's been around the midfield. He just hasn't had a stroke of luck yet. We've got a few drivers in this league that have yet to have a stroke of luck. You know, there's so much more that we can see from a lot of these guys. I mean, what are your thoughts on the likes of Heebyloo and the likes of I don't know all the new ones, Artilero as well? I
think the best person to ask is Luke. I think he's a little bit more experienced with those drivers. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, Artilero I've commented on before. His issue seems to be qualifying at the moment. In Monaco, he was properly quick in qualifying, just couldn't get a clean lap in. And again, in Canada, he had a few issues in qualifying. And let's not forget, it did rain in the second and third session, so that perhaps mixed up the grid ever so slightly. He's going to find it obviously very tough again in France now, because he does have the full qualifying ban, so he will be starting from the back of the grid. So he's going to be one to watch as he fights his way up through the field. And Heebyloo, I think when he's could be the next one to get into that nuts category of just getting the job done quietly and moving his way slowly further and further up the field.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. I think with a lot of these guys, it's the longer the championship draws out, and I think we'll start to see more, drivers coming into the fold, starting to really attack the mid-table and then eventually the top end. I think the more as the season goes on, I think we could be seeing some very, very different faces, at the top of the standings when it comes to Abu Dhabi. I think we're going to be seeing loads. I mean, we've only just gone past round 7. We got round 8 now now on Saturday. That being the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. It could be anybody at the end of the day, but no, I've got to say, guys, it's going to be promising. Obviously, we've got a few news updates. Obviously, Artilero is getting a full qualifying ban, folks, on Saturday. After several different infractions that were made during the race at Canada, so that doesn't help him going into that race. And the other news, obviously, as we've discussed, Westy has been given the full seat for the Williams F1 team. That's going to give them a very, very good chance to get more points. After a 25 point collection at Canada, you can expect them to go even further with this new driver lineup now as well, and I'm sure it won't be long before we see them up there again. I think, guys,
George.
Yep, sorry.
Are you able to get the driver standings onto the screen as a full picture, just so we can have a look, or is that something?
I haven't got it set onto the stream, to be honest.
No problem. I'm just looking at the comments now. We've got Matt James saying the level of competition in this league has risen, and it's too insane, and it's amazing. We've got Mike Cartwright, also known as Paulie Orange, saying Borussia for pole at France. No pressure.
Oh, piling on the agony. Matt James, hashtag leave the bottle at home. If only we could, Matt James. If only we could. Not always, unfortunately. But yeah, I think, guys, we're going to move on now to F2 because obviously lots happening in the Formula 2 season as well. New drivers coming in, and I got to say, it really did shake things up. We had a new face at the top of the race in. At Baku, I think was it Baku? I don't think it was. The right-hander, and you can see him just avoid the grey gravel trap there, making their way down towards the cakes here. Ayler, 3.2 seconds behind him. So, and the engine's only got to worry about on his final lap on softs is catching up with the ART of Lawrence. Though as the time goes on, those softs are going to be feeling a lot more slippery towards the end of this Grand Prix. So it's now or never, really, Luke.
Yeah, I think he needs Jonathan Cox and Lawrence to start battling each other. That would give him a chance to get up behind them, possibly get an overtake, maybe sneak himself a podium. He definitely took that at the start of this race, but now it's Lawrence with the DRS open, heading down the main straight, and there's a long straight. So Jonathan Cox, is he feeling the need to defend? It does move over slightly, a bit of a half defence really. He's going to try and hold it off around the outside. We saw him try and overtake Dan Murphy earlier by doing that, and he's managed to hold it. You just see there Lawrence drifting ever so slightly, so not this time around. He's definitely got a couple more opportunities on this lap, but I think we're going to see a huge ding-dong between the two ARTs coming onto the final lap.
Certainly can, and this is going to be the battle, I think, that sees us through to the end of the race. The two ARTs going pound for pound, fighting here in the final couple of laps here at Spain, as we now see Lawrence tackle the next left-hander, the Verth curve dead ahead. Who's going to get the better exit heading into Campsa? As we can see, Lawrence now half a second behind Johnny Cox as they make their way around. No one suffering from oversteer at this late stage in this Grand Prix as they come round the Campsa bend now, and Lawrence managing the power effectively, and he's only 4 tenths behind. Jonathan Cox doing a prosaic job of hanging on to that P3 as they come down towards the cakes here now as Flip Flop Fish goes fastest with a 1:31. No doubt the tyre change there, and Lawrence looked to take that corner slightly better there as they come through the chicane now, and these two really giving us a show as they come round the Bag Sambadel right-hander heading towards the Europe car now. Lawrence doing his best to try and hit at Johnny Cox right now, and he's getting every bit of that lap fresher hard tyre around this circuit. He does swallow a little bit too much curve there, and Lawrence, I think he's got a penalty. I'm not sure what Jonathan Cox's situation's like, but he's got the DRS now, and Lawrence is now weighing up his teammate for a move here as he makes his way past on the outside of Johnny Cox, heading in towards the Elf corner now, and he's done it! He's overtaken his teammate. Better late than never, but he's done it anyway, and he's now going to be heading round the Renault curve, and Johnny Cox is all over him like a nasty rash, Luke.
Yeah, and perhaps he's going to have another go there. He's got a slightly better exit. Lawrence isn't going to feel the need to go defensive, not this time around. So I think it's going to be coming out of camps and using that DRS out as they start the final sector. That could be the battle now. Lawrence does have a 3-second penalty, and Jonathan Cox, I believe, is still clean. So I'll have to say, Flip Flop Fish has been tired from the session, so hopefully that car will be cleared out of the way and won't cause too much trouble. But Jonathan Cox, now he's all over the back of Lawrence. Lawrence is getting a slightly better exit there out of that chicane. They're both going to try and hook up this corner as perfectly as they can, and it's Lawrence who's done a much better job there, and I think that could well be the battle for third place over now, barring any mistakes.
Well, we'll soon see. I mean, obviously, it's all based on penalties as to what happens at the end of this Grand Prix. As we now see, coming across the line very shortly, Jompalainen coming through the final chicane. He's going to win the feature race, subject to penalties here, as he makes his way around the final curve, the New Holland bend. And it's going to be Jompalainen to take P1 here in this feature race here in this race. Congratulations to Jompalainen for taking that result there. And he takes the first race win, and Johnny Cox indeed takes P3, but teammate of Jompalainen, Dan Murphy, in P2, Univitosi 1 and 2 in this feature race here at Spain. Congratulations to them. But it is indeed Jompalainen's day in the feature race. Congratulations. What a race that was. Lots of battling, and only 2 crashes. I've got to say, the guys seem to handle themselves around this circuit quite well. Yes, that was Jompalainen there, taking P1 in the feature race. We'll now move on to the sprint race, and even more drama throwing. And he's managed to retake P5 He's now all over the back of Dan
back
Murphy. These two were rivals battling it out at the start of Bahrain last week, and they've left everything on the track once again as Andenge has moved up to P1 now. He's fighting it out with NUF1, heading round the Capsa corner, and Andenge now fighting true with NUF1, and he's taken it. He's moved up 3 places since the start of this Grand Prix, and he's now leading the way. Trident in P1, and the chasing NUF1 battling it out with Alan in Ps 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's a very strange place for a car to pass. I can only imagine NUF1 made a mistake early on that allowed the two of them to battle, but Alan won't be complaining. That battling has allowed him to catch right up onto the back of them, and he said Lawrence might move his way back up the field. He's got himself past Jon Palainen, and now he's up into 6th place. Borussia and Dan Murphy will be his next target. So Borussia, I don't think he can get close to Dan Murphy. He got himself a toe road, but attached himself onto the back of that virtuoso car. He's having to go defensive extremely early on the straight. There's nothing he's going to be able to do. A lot of power from that Kramer, and up ahead NUF1 and Alan battling as well. That's allowing Andenge to escape slightly, but on the penultimate lap, and it's looking good for the Trident driver so far.
This is what happens in these 5-lap shootouts. NUF1, after losing a little bit of shape in the car, has allowed Andenge to go 1.2 seconds clear, and it looked like Alan had him there. But as they make their way around the next right-hander, it is NUF1 in P2. Alan trying to close up in his BWT Arden, trying to close the gap between him and NUF1 now as they make their way around the seat, heading towards the Birth curve here in lap 4 of 5 here. Just looking further down, Lawrence coming into play as well. He is back behind Dan Murphy. Only 8/10 separating these two as they head round towards the Birth curve now. Lawrence, knowing that Jon Palainen, who had pace and actually won the feature race earlier on tonight, is now chasing Lawrence. Now 5/10 separating these two. I got to say, we got some right gunslinging action in this Grand Prix here, Luke.
Yeah, Borussia has now managed to get himself on the back of Alan, so after a nightmare qualifying and a nightmare feature race where he managed to salvage a point, couldn't we see the Kramer on the podium in the sprint race. What we look now, NUF1, he's escaped slightly from Andenge, so maybe if he keeps it within a second, this lead battle won't be over just yet. Jon Palainen, he's having to defend from Jonathan Cox. Dan Murphy's having to defend from Lawrence. It seems his famous and ART, these virtuosos and ARTs just can't escape each other in this race at the moment. But we are on the final lap. Borussia, fastest lap of the race.
Here we
He's in the slipstream of the Arden. But Alan, of course, he's in the slipstream of NUF1, and Alan's going for the inside into turn 1. Is Borussia going to be able to make... Oh, he's made contact, in fact, with Alan. He's just gone into the back of him, and that's a disaster for the Arden driver.
Alan, in fact, off the track now. He's dropped down to P9, and Barouche has been allowed to go up to P3. Lawrence, in fact, we just missed it as he was headed down the straight. He overtook Dan Murphy going through there. He had the slipstream pace, and now he moves up to P4, and he's only 8/10 behind Barouche. We couldn't yet see a firecracker finish here in this sprint race of the F2 race here in Spain, and certainly these guys giving us a bit of Spanish magic here this evening as we now see NUF1 currently 1.3 seconds behind Andenge. Andenge looking to have this all but sewn up here as they make their way around the few final bends here now, and very soon, well, not the final few bends, the final few bends of Sector 2 anyway, and they'll be taking the Lacacia bend now. As we look further back, NUF1 still slogging all over the back of Andenge. Just looking further back though, Borussia 7/10 behind, but Dan Murphy not happy about letting this P4 go to Lawrence. He is chasing for the back end of that ART, hoping to regain his P4. But as we look further up now, Andenge coming round the Europe car right-hander as Alan moves past the Nuts Asylum, and Nuts Asylum has actually crashed the car into the wall, so that's a big shame for him. As we now see Andenge come round the final bend round New Holland. It's going to be P1 for Andenge in the sprint race. What a result there for the Carlin driver. He takes P1 here today in the sprint race. 15 points for Andenge. What a result for the Trident team.
Yeah, he set up really in the each race. Didn't have the greatest of qualifyings. Sat on the hard tyres, allowed himself to move up through the field, took advantage of the reverse grid, and just did a fantastic job in that race. NUF1 tried to hold it on to get second place.
And yes, that was Andenge picking up the P1 there in the sprint race, and managing to add some much needed points to his standings, no less. But just looking back through the field, I mean, guys, that was a very promising weekend of F2. A lot of the cards very close together, I've got to say. Lots of battling. And to be expected, I suppose, given the calibre of drivers we've got at this level. And a couple of new faces as well. But Jon Palainen taking the feature race. I think we'll start with you, Luke, because obviously you made a comment before saying you commentated on Jon Palainen in many different leagues on many different occasions. Give us your insights in his result in the feature race. It was phenomenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of Formula 2 is about keeping the tyres in good condition, especially with the huge difference between the softs and the hards. And he's always been a very smooth driver. He always goes for slightly different strategies in Formula 1 where it's possible to do so in qualifying. He took the pole. He did everything right in the feature race. I think he did get overtaken early on by his teammate Dan Murphy, but managed to get back ahead of him. And it was just a great feature race for him. And then heading into the sprint race, Andenge went for the alternative strategy in the feature race, managed to make some good moves towards the end of the race. That put him in a good position for the.
Yeah. I think we lost Luke there for some reason, I think. But no, yeah, he did indeed. I got to say, it looked very promising for the Uni Virtuosi team and or Virtuosi team. Sorry, Jon Palainen taking P1 in Spain in the feature race. Dan Murphy, like you said before, P2 as well, and obviously Dan Murphy P1 at Bahrain and a P2 at Bahrain in both. A P2 in the Bahrain feature race and a P1 in the Bahrain sprint race. But I've got to say, Dan Murphy leaving now leaves the door open for yet more drivers to have a chance of stabbing at the top of the top half. Is there any drivers we can expect to see? I mean, we haven't seen. I mean, Borussia seems to have dived a little bit after his win at Bahrain in the feature race. He got a P4 in the Bahrain sprint race, then a P10 in Spain in the feature race. And looking up, he did manage to get himself a P3, but maybe a sign that he's finding things a little bit tricky.
Maybe. I've just to add, George, we've had a few people join F2 this week. We've had McGee join MP Motorsport alongside Westy. We've had Westy's friend Josh. He's joined. Have a look now. He's joined BWT Arden, and we've had Fletch join Trident.
We have, yes, newcomers that have joined that will be with us for the next round, which will be at Baku tomorrow, and we'll be looking forward to seeing them in action, no doubt. But just wanted to get your thoughts as well, Draftas, on these cars, because naturally a very complex handling system surrounding these cars. They may not be that quick in terms, well, they are quick, but not in terms if you were to compare them with F1 cars. But yet more skill needed.
Yeah, it's a completely different skill set, to be honest. Very little practice for myself going into this on them, and it is a definitely going to take some time to adjust. A lot more control needed. You can't just slam it down and hope it sticks.
I find, Dan, that it's actually more helpful to have an OTC with the F2 cars. For some reason, I think they handle better.
I agree. I'm doing it myself with no TC at the moment, to your pleasure, as I'm not winning.
Nah, not bitter.
But watch out for Team Charu in Baku. Me and Nuts are going to be there this weekend.
Yeah, well, Nuts, I got to say, the more he drives in these cars, the better he's going to get. You're currently P's 9, 9, 7, 10. You know, you've been flirting in amongst the points as well, Draftas. So it's not out the question that Charu could have a good race at Baku, a very different circuit. You like your street circuits as well. Could it be on the up for Charu team tomorrow night?
Let's hope so, mate. Let's hope so. We'll give it our best anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I got to say, ART have been waning a little bit. I got to say, you know, they've certainly one driver in particular. Not sure if he's on this stream now.
Oh,
no.
Who are you talking about, George?
Well, I know Jonathan Cox has been carrying somebody. I wasn't sure if it was you.
Jonathan Cox has been very consistent. Very consistent in the 5-2 cars.
He has.
Hold on, lads. Hold on. I'm not too sure about the carrying because it says it. The ART Grand Prix drivers are on 36 and 33 points. And,
I believe, George, you've got a bite there, mate. I think that's...
Yeah. He's just dangled out.
I'm only winding him up.
Yeah, you are winding me up.
Yeah, got to wind
him up. He wouldn't let me
point.
pass last week. I was trying to chase. I think it was Dan Murphy I was trying to chase.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I wouldn't either.
Why? I was so much quicker than Coxie last week. I couldn't. I just in F2 cars. I got round him obviously, but it just cost us so much time when I could have gone after Dan Murphy and we could have got more points for the team. But it's one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
No team orders.
No
team orders. No, none at all.
No. One we did expect to see more from was Formula John. He unfortunately DNF'd. He actually had two bad results. I think it's a case for him as well. Maybe getting used to the car as well. He didn't have the best of luck around Spain. DNF in the feature race. I think he actually made a bit of a hiccup going into the sprint race, forgetting that there was a double race and actually quit straight after the feature race, which was interesting.
I think that was GFO, wasn't it?
Well, no, apparently Formula John did the same because he didn't even start.
He did the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, GFO did the same, and I know he's a very competent driver, especially
GFO
F1.
is great. I don't know why GFO hasn't entered F1 league.
No,
I don't know. I don't think he was available. Maybe.
Maybe not. I'd like to see him in there though.
No, I think a lot of people would, and that was something we were keen on bringing him into. He's got the pace, he's got the talent, and if you look at the handful of drivers you'd have at the top end, then battling out for P1, you're pretty much talking DRS trains right through the race, which is what you want to see at the end of the day. You know, battle after.
From your perspective, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't think I'd have a voice or.
Well,
or
from a
Luke.
viewer perspective.
Yeah. Well, Luke would, wouldn't you, Luke? You'd want to see it.
Yeah, Luke wants to see it as well. Yeah.
Any less than 5 wide going into turn 1 tomorrow at Baku, and I will be disappointed.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think, and then you've always got someone who tries to go in down the narrow inside bit, haven't you? And they always get boxed off, and they hit the corner of the wall at 2 and 1.
Do you think we'll see a safety car?
I'll give you guys something to watch tomorrow, because if I'm behind Lawrence on track, I'm going to pass him in the castle section. There you go. Is that for some coverage?
Can't see that happening, mate.
I will really shout if that happens, Droftas. I really will. I will.
I mean, is that going to be some Diamonds Are Forever James Bond getting it on 2 wheels?
They might both have to get through there, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, are you sure, Dan?
We'll give it a go.
Yeah, we'll give it a go. I know. All right.
Yeah.
I'll be sat there just behind. Yeet. There we go.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to cover tonight?
Well, no, I'm just saying. I was looking at the point scenario with the Drivers' Championship. Baruch is still barely hanging by a thread at the top of P1. Jon Palainen chasing him down on 49 points. Lawrence on 36, though can't speak for that much longer. Jonathan Cox P4 in with 33 points. NUF1 P5 32 points, and Denge 26 points in 6th place, and Flip Flop Fish with 19 points. Very fine margins in F2, guys. I mean, you can't call a championship winner at all, can you?
NUF1's been doing well in F2. He doesn't really feature much in the feature race, pardon the pun, but in the sprint race, he's always there.
Yeah, I think grid position means a lot in sprint race, because obviously it's only 5 laps, isn't it? So it's hard
definitely.
It's hard work for a lot of the guys to really try and push to the front in a.
They dumb down so much as well when you're on this start straight, mate. When you're coming from first gear, they dumb down so much. It's hard to get going.
Like if you don't get any good momentum coming out of the final bend going into the straight, you probably lose a shed load of time, because there's always that initial. And if you're not careful and you do pounce on the power too early, you'll end up spinning off. That's what we have noticed. It's a very tricky, complex car to work and certainly work proactively. Matt James just commented now saying, "I'll just be happy to finish a race in F2."
Yeah.
But you can't blame him. He's absolutely right. It's a very, very hard. It's a very, very tough car to drive. And that doesn't take anything away from Nuts. It just is, and that goes for every single driver in the league as well. But I got to say, very interesting to see Jon Palainen at the top. Borussia, though, seems to be the consistent man if you consider points across both leagues. Probably one of the better all-round drivers.
Probably one of the better ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd agree with one of the better drivers. Just I would question his decision making.
Well, yeah, you've got to after that.
He improves that, and he's right there.
Well, you compare it. You look at what he did in Canada. I mean, that wasn't a very good decision to make, was it? Going into the pit lane, he just basically handed that lead over to Westy and Paulie Orange, for them to battle out, and it just obviously cost him the Canadian Grand Prix. And I'm sure he'd be looking to rectify that at France. He won't be making the same mistake again. That's for sure.
I think he'll be there in France. I think he'll be there.
Yeah.
He'll definitely qualify in top 3. in Q3, I think.
Let's hear the
But tomorrow,
let's hear,
sorry?
I was going to say, let's hear the thoughts in the chat as well. Who do you guys think is going to win the French Grand Prix, and who do you think is going to win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix tomorrow in F2 as well? Obviously, we've got the feature race and the sprint race. Put your comments below. Sorry, Lawrence, what were you saying?
I was just going to say tomorrow we'd look forward to Baku, don't we, in the F2 cars? And who do you think's going to win the feature race?
I don't know. I'll tell you what. Let's do this then. Each of you have to name a driver. Who do you think is going to win at Baku tomorrow? Then we'll start with the feature race. Start with the feature race.
Ooh, I think it could be Westy.
You think it could be Westy? Another debut win this time in F2.
I think so. I'm on to that. I think it's Westy tomorrow in the feature race.
Luke, how about yourself?
If he gets in as a reserve, I'm going to go Paulie Orange.
It's a very
Ooh.
bold selection, if I say so myself. Could we be having a repeat of Canada at Baku? What about yourself, Dan?
I'm going to go for back-to-back feature race wins for John Balainen myself.
I got to say, I've got to agree with you on that one. I'm going to back Jon Palainen as well. I think he's the man. I think I got to say he won in great style at Spain, and I think he's on course to do the same thing again next week. What about the sprint? What about the sprint race? We're going to look at.
You can't tell. You can't tell, can you? Because the feature race, it reverses the grid from the feature race, doesn't it? So, for me personally, I can't really predict.
Yeah, the guy that finishes 8th in the feature race is obviously going to be starting on that front row come the sprint. So,
well, I'm going to make a shout anyway. I'm going to shout for NUF1 purely on the basis that, like Lauren said, he performs in the sprint race.
He's always there. He's just for some reason he just ends up at the front. Matt James just saying he's with Luke on that one about Paulie Orange being at the top of the feature race. Who do you think, on a final note then, so you end this, who do you think is going to win at France?
Ooh.
No, sorry. Who's your top 3 at France? Who's your top 3?
My top 3. I think you've got to start with Lukey on that one. Lukey, you go first.
Birussia,
Ooh,
Westy,
okay. Yeah.
and I think NUF1 again.
An F1?
Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
It's interesting.
I think there
Big
could be
call.
more penalties than a lot of people
Big
think in
call.
France.
Yeah, okay.
That's really interesting.
my top 3 for France. I'm going with Jos Heinze to actually get it over the line in first. I think Borussia is going to come second, and I think Orange will get the final step on the podium.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Josh. Then I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Josh. Then Beer, and then I think it's going to be Yossi Hines. And then Matt James just said Orange, Westy, and Josh. Who do you think, George?
It's a tough one to call. I mean, you've just thrown several drivers in the mix there that could all win this Grand Prix.
I didn't even mention Orange. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
I know, but he's a proven winner though.
You've got proven winners from all over. You've got the likes of Orange, John Cox. They're all proven winners. Artilero, I know he started from the back, but an alternate strategy is obviously going to be his call. So that could come into play. You could have a rainy race, and then who knows what the weather's. Who's going to be quick in the wet? We haven't had a wet race yet this season. We haven't had a wet race in FOR.
No. Right.
Well,
I think we've covered all bases for this week, haven't we?
Well, I was just going to say my top 3. I think.
Oh, sorry, George. Go on.
No, it's all right. Just cut me off. It's fine. No, like my top 3. I think Westy matched pound for pound what Paulie Orange was doing. So what I'm gonna say is, I don't know anything about Josh yet. I've never seen him in action myself. So I'm gonna go with what I know. I'm gonna go with Yossi Heinze P1. I'm gonna go with Westy P2. And I'm going to go with Paulie Orange in P3.
Yossi Heinz getting a shout.
I think there's more. We haven't seen the best of him yet. I mean, he was quick in Monaco. No one could catch him around Monaco. And he went... Obviously, he got stubbed at the start at Canada. You know, he was hit with that penalty. You know, he couldn't finish qualifying. I think we'll see on an open circuit. I think we'll see more of him in France.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look forward to it. Right. Was that then? Are we done? Anything else to add? Because I think this has been going on for an hour now. I think we need to shut this down and get going.
Oh well, we'll call the announcement now, guys.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. Yeah, I think we've all enjoyed it. Luke, have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, a bit different. Yeah, we'll bring it obviously back again next week. It'll be a good laugh, guys. If you want to drop a like and subscribe, if you have any comments to make as well, folks, please leave it in the chat box below. But don't forget as well, please leave a like and a subscribe in general to the FOR channel. That would be most helpful. But from all you guys from us here, the admin team, as well as Luke here in the co-commentary scene as well here at FOR, it's been an absolute pleasure. Be sure to obviously use the code FOR20 for your mixed energy products there for 10% off off those products, and you can use them as you will. Throughout your day-to-day lives, whether it's at the gym or around the house, or whether you're taking your dog for a walk, for example. But yeah, from me, George Morgan, Lawrence, Dan, and Luke, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you soon. See you tomorrow for F2. Goodbye.